Hey everyone, Nick Como here, co-founder of AIquery.io. New haircut, new use case coming at you. Gotta rep the baseball jersey. Happy opening day, everyone. But before we can go ahead and watch some baseball, let's dive into some of the tech. So I wanted to kind of continue the use case series we've been doing of practical use cases we've got asked about from practitioners. So this one also came from the conference. So the last video, last week, if you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out. It's about local admin rights. This one we're going to talk about RDP. And I kind of want to break into three primary components, which is auditing across your environment. Where is RDP enabled versus where is it disabled? Obviously, if you want it disabled, this is more hardening. Then it's auditing activity associated with RDP, where it enabled, or even if it's disabled, attempts at failed logins. And then the last piece, and this is a shout out to Dave Balcar, looking for RDP session disconnects rather than user-initiated logoffs. The reason from that, as Dave kind of pointed out, is that as an attacker or a pen tester or what have you, you're going into an environment, you're getting what you want, you're getting out. You're not going through the process of actually initiating a user log off on an RDP session. So while it's not indicative definitively of any sort of malicious activity, it could be a worthwhile indicator that could be helpful within context of other information that could be suspicious going on in that device. So we're going to look for session disconnects rather than user-initiated log off. So those are kind of the three primary components. I like to think of it as hardening, right, for is it enabled or disabled. Then auditing, right, with kind of what's the recent activity, and then more investigating of where do these session disconnects happen. So without further ado, we are AI Query. Let's expand QuerySmith over here on the right and have AI generate a query for us. So we're just going to use the general mode and say, is RDP enabled? And hit generate. And give that just a moment here while it crafts up a query for us. All right, perfect. And here we have it, 95% confidence score. You love to see it. And if we look at the actual query, we can see it's querying the registry table, and we can see the actual path that it's calling for terminal server. We can see the name, deny TS connections. It's exactly what we're looking for. What's also nice is we can see they added in a case statement right here of 0 being RDP enabled, 1 being RDP disabled. Just makes it easier to read the results, especially when you're doing it at scale. Obviously, I'm just doing it against my one little testing machine. And then we can also see a nice little date time conversion of the epoch time for M time, which is the last modification time. So we can see it changed to last edit and then made it a human readable date time string for when that last edit occurred. So this is perfect, exactly what we're looking for. We're going to go ahead and hit accept, populate it over here, then hit execute. Rather than pivoting over and checking out the query right away though, let's queue up a few additional queries that we can all look at one set of time. So we'll go on over, hit generate. And this time we're going to do, that's the is it enabled. Now we're going to look at the any associated activity. So we'll select Windows event log and we'll say RDP logins and hit generate. And then what we'll want to do while we're waiting here is let's repopulate our little test device and then say RDP login audit. And then past 48 hours, which we will refine here in a moment. And perfect, we already have a result. There we go. And we'll drop that down and we can see here. Awesome. Okay, so it's got the information, the IP address, the domain, JSON extract over Windows event log, in security as the channel, and the event ID is in 4624 or 4625. So 4624 is successful logins, 4625 is failed logins. That's exactly what we wanted. So that's perfect. The only other pieces that we want to add here is let's refine this, add an event ID so we can know which one is the success versus the failure. So add in event ID, refine. You can actually give them multiple commands to refine. I don't know why, I just like doing them sequentially so that if I ever did mess something up, I can pivot back and not lose any progress because you can always refine a previous node. But we can see right here, event ID as event ID, so perfect. Now I'll be able to distinguish the successful versus the failed. And then the last thing is let's give it the time frame, last 48 hours, last 48 hours, and refine once more. And again, I think refine, especially for some of you more seasoned practitioners out there, knowing OS Query and have utilized OS Query prior, I think refine is really where it becomes helpful. Obviously, query generation is helpful from the get-go, but I think the ability for you to write your own queries, not rely on AI, but then have AI be able to add in these little pieces for you progressively to refine and fine-tune your queries, really where I think a big value prop comes. So that's what we have here, and we can see it's added in. So we'll go ahead and we will hit accept, and we will execute that on the device. And then the last piece that we want to queue up, kind of as we talked about, is the identification of potential indicators of compromise. So for this one, we're going to use a preset. Just X out these results down here. Dun, dun, dun. Come on, Mac. Sorry, I meant to click out of that beforehand. So we're going to use a query preset, and then we're going to go to custom, and we'll search RDP. So I actually created this query already. We can hit select. So I actually used AI to create this query, but I had multiple different refined steps and figured we didn't want to go through that multiple times, keep the video as short as possible, despite my long-winded speech. So what we can see here, the other interesting piece, and the reason I want to call it out is that the channel we can see is the actual operational channel associated with this application, as opposed to the channel security, which I think is interesting. A lot of the queries they've shown are channel security or system, but this is pretty cool because you can actually extract these specific logs for an application. And that, again, I think is kind of one of the more powerful components of the Windows event log piece. There's so much information you can get here, and you can utilize OS Query and AI assistants to help extract that for you in a moment. So the only thing we want to change here is it says past week. Let's keep it 48 hours to be consistent with the query on the right. And so we'll change this 48 hours. And then let's select the specified agent that we've been checking out here and hit execute. Perfect. So now we'll go on over, and now we'll check out the results, and we can see we have them all queued up, all already returned, which is excellent. This is real time, by the way. And we can see here, very simply for us, RDP is enabled. We can also see that M time was converted to a more human readable format of when the last edit was, which is great. So then we'll pivot back over, check out query results, and let's look at the audit of logins. So here we can see, if you recall, 4624 is successful, 4625 is unsuccessful. So what we can do is when we have 579 total results, nice little addition there. You can view the total rows, total results all in one quick look. See if we want to whittle this down. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll do event ID, and then we'll say equals 4624 and apply that filter. And now we can see we have significantly less events. And then if we wanted to, once again, which we don't have enough events that it particularly matters, we'll take username and we'll say contains admin. Perfect. And so here we have all of the admin successful RDP connections and their timestamps in the last 48 hours. So that's great, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So now that we know that RDP is enabled on this device, or again, if we're querying a bunch of devices, how many devices it's enabled on, and we're tracking the successful and failed logins, so this is kind of the audit component. So we have the hygiene piece, the audit piece. Now let's look for kind of the more threat hunting component, and pivot back over and look for these session disconnects. And we can see that these actually line up. I should actually had it open on another tab so it'd be easier, but we can see these timestamps line up pretty well with some of the successful logins. Not all of them, because I did a couple user-initiated logoffs, but I mostly did session disconnects for the sake of kind of showcasing this. So again, individually, I don't think this is anything that's crazy or eye-popping or, oh, we need to investigate. But if you were seeing some abnormal activity on a device, then, or RDP is normally disabled and somehow it is enabled, you saw the M time as recently, maybe you want to check this out because this could be a helpful indicator of potential malicious activity and which user is compromised. So then you can go ahead and look for other attributes or activity by that user to say, hey, what is going on in this machine? Let's try and backtrack and derive root cause. So that's kind of everything. Again, I think it's more of the auditing and hardening, and then, or the hardening, auditing, and then threat hunting. But the last piece, as always, we can go ahead and we can show what actions we can take. Let's say we want to investigate this further. Maybe we want RDP eventually enable on this machine, but while we investigate, let's cut off all RDP connection, and then actually clean up that device or investigate further. So we'll pivot on over to live shell, select the device we've been talking about here, hit continue. We need a second step for verifying of credentials for security, and in just a moment it should connect to our shell. All right, and here we are remoted into our testing device here. So let's pivot on over, ask AI for assistance, and say disable RDP, and see what it drums up for us there. But again, notice how much simpler that is just to ask disable RDP, and then boom, here we have it. This actually stops the service, which could be interesting, but let's go ahead and change the registry path, registry key configuration. We may actually want to do both of them, but just for the sake of this video, we'll go on ahead, set item property value of 1. So I could actually just requery that key and show you, hey, it's been disabled. But I've done that in prior videos. I think it would be a little bit cooler. So let's actually go on over and try and initiate RDP into that machine. And as we can see, in a moment here, we will get an error. Throw up that error. Give me what I want. There we go. Unable to connect. Boom. And then also just kind of showcase, also because I'm going to continue RDPing into that machine, but showcase how quick and easy and how this is actually applied in real time. Let's change that value back to 0. So RDP is now once again enabled on that device. And we'll try and RDP into that machine, and boom, right away we can see, looks to confirm, and it is right here, and now we are remote into that device. So I know we obviously re-enabled RDP at the end, but the whole general premise of kind of breaking down what we covered here in the video is first the audit or hardening of the device, where is RDP enabled across the environment, and then taking action, disabling it where applicable. Audit activity associated with RDP, where successful and unsuccessful logins and by whom. And then kind of the threat hunting component of potential session disconnects. Could this indicate abnormal activity or abuse of RDP? And then going ahead and disabling RDP in order to further investigate that device. So that's kind of the full scope of everything we have. So hopefully that was helpful. Go Red Sox. Happy opening day. And thanks, everyone. Have a great day.